television was in its infancy. Well, I thought it was just another job, so I took it. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine what would happen to us.
For decades, I Love Lucy has been recalled as pure bliss, bright lights, nonstop laughs, and a cast of characters who seemed like family. But prior to her death, Vivian Vance exposed something which destroyed that idyllic image. She had kept the secret all these years, a secret beneath the laughter, the rehearsals, and the glamour. Her revelation was not just shocking, it was disturbing. Why did she keep it inside for so long? And what did she finally confess about one of TV's favorite series? Keep reading to find out. Vivian Vance speaks out on I Love Lucy. Vivian Vance was beloved by millions, playing Ethel Mertz, the fast-talking next-door neighbor whose dialogue with Lucy Ricardo became television gold. To audiences, she appeared to embody warmth, humor, and devotion, the ideal foil to Lucille Ball's wacky genius. Hollywood lost one of its brightest comedic lights on August 17, 1979, when Vivian Vance died at 70. Years of fighting breast cancer had finally taken its toll, but she remained frail and still remembered for her irrepressible spirit. During her last few months, she lived quiet days in California with her husband, John Dodds, who stood faithfully by her side until the end. Praise came in from all over the show business world, with Desi Arnaz describing her as not only a talented actress, but a great friend, and Lucille Ball crying as she recalled the woman who had been a constant presence during her triumphs and heartbreak. The death of Vivian ended an era, but not before she ensured that she unveiled secrets about I Love Lucy that remade the way the fans recalled the show in perpetuity. When Vivian started divulging these confessions, she was already engaged in her toughest fight. In 1973, she developed breast cancer, a disease that could not be contained despite treatment. Chemotherapy and operations wore on her body, but not on her spirit. She kept appearing in public, smiling through the agony, but those around her knew that she was living with the awareness that she had little time left. When her health began to deteriorate, she found herself looking back over her career and the legacy that had defined her. One of the most surprising things Vivian conceded was how unlike the off-screen world was from what they imagined. Audiences had assumed for decades that the actors in the sitcom were as similar to the characters they portrayed as they seemed to be, cheerful, tight-knit, and full of authentic love. But that, Vivian said, was an illusion created for television. The actors themselves could have been professional enough to manage that kind of illusion, but when the cameras were cut off, things were much more complex. There were tensions that simmered behind closed doors, studio rules imposed upon them that made life claustrophobic, and internal struggles no one at home would ever have suspected. Vivian herself bore much of that burden. She said she frequently felt imprisoned by the Ethel Mertz role. Initially, to be cast in this pioneering sitcom was exhilarating. It was a chance that made her famous, financially secure, and beloved by millions. But as the years passed, the same thing that had made her a legend became a sell. Her candor during those last years provided fans with a glimpse into the price of humor. It was not about rehearsals, lines, or slips. It was about the sacrifices a woman made for a character that would catapult her and chain her for life. Vivian never took away from her appreciation for the experience, but she also let it be known that the laughter on television had a cost. The greatest surprise she revealed was her on-screen marriage to Fred Mertz, a union tainted from the get-go. The secret war with William Frawley. When Vivian Vance originally contracted with I Love Lucy, she hoped for an opportunity to play comedy and gain national fame. What she did not expect was to be paired with William Frawley, a seasoned actor more than 2 decades her senior, as her on-screen husband Fred Mertz. The decision stunned her. Off-camera, Vivian was vibrant, attractive, and in her early 40s, while Frawley was pushing his 60s with a rough edge that came from years of hard living in Hollywood. The combination made her think the pairing was strange, even ridiculous, and during an unguarded moment, she said that nobody would ever think a woman like her would what a man so much older. One comment set the tinder for a lifetime feud ablaze. Frawley, notorious for her quick temper and sharp wit, took the remark as a personal affront. Rather than dismiss it, He brought the resentment with him for the remainder of the show's duration. From that point on, their professional relationship was characterized not by warmth, but by cold disdain that permeated all their interactions backstage. On stage, things were otherwise. As Fred and Ethel Mertz, the two gave comic relief as Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. Their bickering, banter, and occasional cooperation made them popular TV pairing. Viewers loved their chemistry, never realizing the laughter camouflaged bitterness. Reality was that all the lines given, all the arguments staged, and all the exasperations of spousal irritability they depicted had a sharp edge of reality in them. What viewers perceived as written comedy often sprung from a reservoir of authentic irritation. Off camera, their relationship did not get any better. The two traded sniping remarks, occasionally under their breath, occasionally at each other during rehearsals. Frawley, a heavy drinker and known troublemaker, often went out of his way to fuel the tension with cutting sarcasm. Vivian, for her part, would not give an inch, and her own quick wit was sufficient to respond in kind. The cast became used to the undertone of hostility, and although most steered clear of finding themselves in the middle of it, they could not help but notice the chill that pervaded the air whenever Fred and Ethel needed to be on the set together. In spite of this, both Vance and Frawley were consummate professionals. They knew that whatever personal animosity they bore, the success of the show rested on their capacity to be a believable pair. So, they did exactly that. Before the studio audience, they snarked at each other with comedic timing that had folks laughing uproariously. They bantered off each other with exactness, projecting an air of long-married couple whose squabbles were more loving than malevolent. The illusion worked so successfully that several viewers were convinced that they were probably buddies in real life. The irony was that the truth was as far from it as possible. Vivian subsequently admitted in interviews that the relationship was irreparable. She remembered, "Bill and I never got along. From the very start, we just couldn't stand one another. But we were actors, and we did our job. The weird thing is, people thought our arguing was love. It wasn't. It was the only genuine thing about Fred and Ethel." Her sentiments unveiled that their comedic chemistry was not down to affection, but to hatred channeled in the interest of performance. There were even instances when their rivalry became legendary among the crew. Frawley would occasionally swear under his breath about Vivian in language too foul to be quoted, and once Vivian confided privately that she feared scenes involving too much intimacy with him. The professional facade remained intact, but beneath it existed a strong dislike that never thawed. Unlike other Hollywood co-star feud rivalries that simmered over time, theirs never thawed to reconciliation. But somehow, the tension might have enhanced their performances. The edge of Ethel's grievances and Fred's intransigent responses had a truth that only true emotion could give. What was a casting mistake initially led to one of television's greatest comic couples, a couple whose tension was the spark for their funniest scenes. For Vivian, though, the tension was actual and enduring. Playing Ethel was difficult enough, but working alongside an actor who actively detested her provided a bonus level of difficulty that viewers never knew about. It was one of the first cracks in the image-perfect facade of I Love Lucy, evidence that even in the middle of TV history in the making, human relationships could not be scripted. But if it was agonizing to clash with Frawley, enduring Lucille Ball's perfectionism required even more fortitude. Life under Lucille Ball. For Vivian Vance, entering Lucille's universe was both thrilling and daunting. In her interviews, she explained what it was like to work under the watchful eye of Lucille, conceding, "Lucy was tireless. She could rehearse a scene over and over until the timing was so sharp it cut like glass. You couldn't afford to miss a beat with her." Right from the start, Vivian knew that being Ethel Mertz would involve more than memorizing her lines. Timing was everything. Physical comedy needed to be done with precision, and delivery had to hit the mark with just the right beat. Lucille demanded that all of those around her meet her level of dedication. She was a perfectionist in the truest sense, Vivian explained. If the rhythm wasn't there, if the laugh didn't come where she wanted it, we'd do it again and again until it did. For Vivian, who had built her reputation on stage acting, This was a crash course in a new kind of comedy, one that lived or died on the sharpness of its delivery. Initially, the pressure was intense. Vivian constantly felt like she was racing to keep up with Lucy's tireless energy. She confessed, "I was scared to death in those early days. Lucy had such natural brilliance, and I was